welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar regarding unlocking the value of regulatory dossiers through next generation eCTD viewing technologies. So great to have you all registered and on board. Quick intro, my name is Matt Tyler. I'm the Director of Business Development for Intelligent Q Dossier, and I'll just be your host today. So I'll be handing over to the brains of the operation shortly. So we'll get into that. So if you want to knock on to the next slide, Mikhail.
Sure. Yeah.
So for those of you that aren't aware, so there's a huge amount of experience in Intelligent Q Dossier, huge experience in regulatory affairs and particularly, eCTD technology and its management. One huge coup that we have today. So we've got Hans with us. Hans is actually part of the very first eCTD submission. So you'll see we have a huge amount of experience and knowledge within our team. What you'll see today is we'll talk a lot about Dossplorer. So this is a tool that was created by the Q Dossier team, and that comes from a team that use this type of tool and the work from a day-to-day operation. So what we have there is this tool that Mikhail will go into some detail shortly, that really is from the people that are in the dirt and run this day to day. So what you'll see is there's a huge amount of development that goes on. So the feedback that comes from the guys that use this tool goes back in through the development program. So it's a constant updated and very good tool to use. If you want to knock on to the next slide, Mikhail. So what you'll see today, we'll get an introduction and background through this, and I guess just to highlight that the talk that Mikhail will give will be about 45 minutes, and then we'll go into some Q&A. So please feel free to send questions in the chat and or save them for the end, and we can go through that process. So yeah, an initial background and introduction, then into, I guess, the uniqueness of Dossplorer, and particularly highlighting that this isn't just a viewing tool. This is a very useful management tool for dossiers, and we'll also touch on some of the analytical capabilities. Okay, so then on to the man himself. So Mikhail, he is our Director of Regulatory Information Management. He has 15 years in the industry, is hugely experienced, and was actually the initial product owner of Dossplorer. So we couldn't have anyone better to talk to today, along with Hans, who's joining him. What you see is in the text there that Mikhail has worked on various and a huge number of submissions using this tool, covering the globe. So really looking forward to this chat today. As I said, as we go, feel free to put any questions in the chat, and we'll pick up on some Q&A at the end. If you feel that there's of use to pick up a more specific live demo on the back of this, then please contact us, and there's some info on the back end of the slides where you can speak with us. So I'll be quiet. I'll hand over to the brains of the operation, and off you go, Mikhail.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for the introduction, and I'll take it from here. So, quick overview of what we will show you today, because we promised to unveil some of our latest developments. So, of course, that's why we keep that till the end. But we'll start first with the background for development. Also go over some typical limitations in eCTD viewing, and of course how we think we have tackled taking away those limitations using Dossplorer. Also the unique views that can be created in Dossplorer, and then go let's have a look at the use cases, so how Dossplorer can support any of your regulatory activities, and then get to do the latest developments, summarizing that, and then go to the Q&A. So let's start quickly, because background for development. So this year we will be having our 5-year anniversary for Dossplorer. So that's relatively a short time compared to when that first eCTD got submitted in 2003. And it was actually our founder, Hans van Brugge, who submitted that first eCTD in early 2003 in January. Then later that year, end of the year, also submitted the first eCTD for the centralized procedure. That was not yet, let's say, as eCTD consultancy or Dossiers that got founded later on. eCTD Consultancy got founded in 2006. 2007, Dossiers got founded as, let's say, the services and support organization that also could actually create those eCTDs for the companies that also were using our consultancy services. So that was in the early days for eCTD. Well, another important milestone was earlier this year when Dossiers got acquired by Selligence. But at least there at Dossiers, we're still the same people. And as you can see, those people, including Hans, including myself, have been working with eCTD for a very long time. So really hands-on experience there. And still in 2017, we said, there is still the need for an eCTD viewing solution that can do more than what we have so far been able to see and observe on the market. So that was, by the way, not something we just realized in 2017, because already in 2009, there was this IRIS Forum special project. There was this lifecycle management group where one of our former colleagues, Kevin Wing, he already participated in that. And then it was concluded that there is a need for more, let's say, looking beyond that sequence view, a single package that gets submitted, or the cumulative view of a single application, everything that has been submitted so far, or the current view. So there is a need for other views as well there. And also what they said already at that time is, it's nice to have lifecycle operations like new, replace, delete. These are needed to show the eCTD lifecycle, but that's not all a user likes to see, because there is, even more importantly, is to be able to conclude on the status of a document, because just to show that the document has an operation new doesn't mean it's the latest file. So that was something concluded at that time. Then also the ability to have some flexibility when it comes to viewing with regards to how the branches like tree to P sections, tree to S sections are structured. At that time, discussions were, okay, how to structure a tree to P branch? Should that be per manufacturer? What if the process is taken care of by multiple manufacturers? Should we go for a single tree to P? Should we go for multiple? And well, maybe for the creation of your eCTD, you're bound to that granularity, but your viewer doesn't have to be restricted to that. And also when it comes to the use of metadata, that metadata is often trapped somewhere in the eCTD, in the submission envelope, at a very particular level, like a tree to P section. It doesn't mean that it is not relevant or should not be shown anywhere else in the viewing tool. So that was already 2009. Then also in 2013, I gave a presentation where I also gave some examples on how eCTD is a very rigid structure. It's organized product by product, country by country. Again, that metadata is kind of trapped in that dossier. Yeah? So we have a submission envelope, which maybe in 2003 was a big step, going from a paper dossier to digitalized paper, because that envelope is basically the label that you would normally put on a box. But you would actually like to get that information where it belongs, which is with your documents. Then also having that granularity and the branching fixed. And already at that time, or even in 2008 already, that's when I first heard about it, people said, well, this is all going to be solved, because when RPS is there, eCTD 4.0, then these things will no longer be there. But now it's 2022, so we are 15 years ahead. And when I just saw some latest overview, then I think it will only be by 2028 when our eCTD 4.0 will really be taken in production and becomes mandatory for some of the health authorities. So that is 20 years later. And what we saw is that a lot of the limitations in the current eCTD version can be already taken care of by an intelligent viewer. So what we said is we need to unlock the true value of your eCTDs, something that a lot of companies spend a lot of time and effort on creating the eCTDs, submitting them to the health authorities. And yeah, then once submitted, then yeah, these can also be used for so many internal use cases, being made available to a broader group of people within the company, not just RegOps or RA. And with intelligent software and also developing something based on our own experience as subject matter experts, also with hands-on experience in creating eCTDs ourselves. And very important, making use of the eCTDs as they are structured today according to version 3.2.2. Then some other important topics were, of course, safety. It has to be safe, it has to be secure, but it should also be web-based. It should be flexible. And then, well, basically, we should support eCTD. It's strong focus on eCTD, but also NIS and other dossier formats are used. For us, it was important to have everything in one place and not be limited to eCTD format only. Then we wanted to offer the advantages of the cloud. But for those people who do not want to, and now we are 5 years ahead. So, but at that time, 2017, not everybody was comfortable storing their data in the cloud. And with our hybrid cloud solution, that's one of the options that we offer. Then you can keep your own data stored on-premise or in a virtual private cloud, while the application is hosted by us in the cloud and also being taken care of, being maintained there, being updates being deployed by us, and also the validation is taken care of by us when it comes to the application. So that was 2017. So we felt, and I think it's also proven since then, that there was a need for a viewer that can do more than the traditional viewers, or sometimes the publishing tools that were also used as a viewer on the site. So what are some of those typical limitations? Well, first of all, there's keeping up with specifications. There were many updates and released from local agencies because an agency name changed or something else, minor changes, then resulted in a new version of DTD that needed to be supported. And then for the software applications, that meant an actual update of your software, of your application version. So we said also that needs to stop, because updating your software, that is one thing. But if we can support all of those small DTD changes by configuration only, then that would save a tremendous amount of time for the, let's say, on deployment, on validation internally within the company. So, so far we have been able to support any specification update with configuration only, and also that configuration is taken care in our cloud. So our customers are not affected by that by any means. Then logical and flexible grouping of applications. So once you get in your viewer, then often on the left-hand side, you get a long list of all your applications. In this case, it's not such a long list, but this can be hundreds and hundreds of applications. And if you just see an application name there, then it can be very difficult, well, to find the application, let alone look across applications. So what we have come up with is a way to organize that tree in a flexible manner. So we have our tree configurator where you can select metadata that is typically already extracted from the dossier during import, either from the envelope or from other locations. Or optionally can also be added manually during import, and then it can be used to organize that tree in any logical order. So in this case, it's by product group, product name. So what you see here is the therapeutic area. And then below that, I have my product QDrug in this case, where all my QDrug applications are nicely listed together. While on the left here, it's still scattered in that flat list of applications. So that is the grouping of applications. Then, as I said, metadata is trapped at specific locations. So here you see a screenshot of the envelope. So what we have come up with is the ability to select which metadata a user would like to see behind each leaf. So here we have the agency, we have also a sequence number, we have also a description for the regulatory activity. So that is the type of information that can be shown, but there is a lot more that can be shown. So users can either, they can enable, disable the display of that metadata behind the leaves. And also when you are then scrolling through your application, typically when that metadata is only shown in the envelope or only shown here at 3-P level, as soon as you scroll down to the document, it's gone. And no, it's no longer shown on the screen. So here we don't have that issue anymore. So this is actually an example where on 3-P level, it's all visible. So it's clear that these files are belonging to that branch. But then once you are in the application and it looks like this, then as you can see, 3-P is no longer on the screen here. And if you have multiple drug product sections, you get lost pretty quickly. So small things that make a big difference in the interaction, day-to-day interaction as a user. So besides that, we also said, well, we have to be able to do more than just the traditional views. So maybe from, let's say, a regulator point of view, it makes sense to look at it product by product, country by country, because as a regulator, you are a single country anyway, and the product approvals are done product by product. But even here, for example, with FDA, with CASA, there they already also have come to an understanding that it is actually very useful to be able to compare the dossier of one applicant with the dossier of another, especially if it concerns the same API, the same type of product with the same indication. So for a lot of generics, then you do like to ensure consistency in the information also across dossiers. But mainly from also internal point of view, there really is a need for a more holistic view across applications. Because if I'm a product manager, it's unlikely that I'm only responsible for one product in one country. I might be responsible for that product worldwide. So I would like to see what are my specifications I have in the US compared to Europe, compared to Switzerland or any other location in the world. Or if I have a change control process where we need to do a regulatory impact assessment, I also like to look across applications and not application by application. There are a number of other use cases, so that could be a CMC or quality assessment, where are we using this particular manufacturer, marketing assessment, safety inquiries, but all of them are not limited to looking at a single application only. So we have to come up with, well, in total, more than 20 different views where, let's say, let's first look at the left. We have the traditional views, a sequence view, which is basically a single submission. We have a cumulative view, which is all those single submissions together, all the documents submitted so far. And then when you switch to a current view only, then those documents that have been replaced in the meantime, that have been deleted, are no longer shown. So, but then again, by a single application only. If we look at Dossplorer, we do have all those traditional views, and we also have some variations on those traditional views. Like when it comes to the current view, it's not only up to including all sequences, or only up to including the a certain sequence number, which we can also say, show me the current view on the 2nd of February 2020. By date, for example. We can also create all kinds of combinations. So we have different varieties on the current view. We have also views on specific regulatory activities. I'll come back to that, across similar branches and across applications. So let's look at some examples. So here we have, for example, a tablet and a capsule in different strengths. So if I would now like to compare my specifications or my analytical procedures, then I would have to expand all of those branches individually, start scrolling back and forward, and then open those documents individually. So what we have come up with is everything in one branch, since these are already similarly structured, since eCTD is such a rigid standard with a fixed structure, with fixed file names, everything standardized. Well, that limitation is also our biggest advantage, because that allows us to easily merge these branches into a single structure. We know nothing will be lost there, and still you have all documents in one place. So that avoids excessive scrolling. It also allows for easy comparison. So where here the documentation is scattered across these three branches, then in Dossplorer it can be viewed all in a single 3-P branch. And as you can see with the metadata that is here, still in green, only at the 3-P level, in blue behind each document. So that's one thing, that's merge branches. This is still within a single dossier. But if we now think further across the same line, then we could say, well, if we can do that across branches, why can't we do that across applications? And there is no reason why we couldn't do that. So we have enabled that. We have created an across dossier view where we have a single module 1 to 5 structure. That is where we can make a pre-selection of the applications using that tree configurator that I've just shown. So where I had all the applications for QDrug in one view, these can be merged now together in a single module 1 to 5. So here we have all the documents from Australia, in this case, with my documents from Thailand next to my documents from the US. So that can be very easily compared. So now that is more, let's say, technical or functionality. So how can we now, why is this relevant to you? Well, this can support all kind of internal business processes. Think about the creation of your first marketing authorization application. So what we have in Dossplorer is also a very intuitive, extensive commenting function where you can add comments on your draft submission. So in the process of creating your first application, you can collaborate in Dossplorer, performing reviews, QCing hyperlinks, making sure all the latest document versions are included. And besides the ability to add in comments, you can also manage the status of them. So you can put them to open, resolved, closed. So this way there is collaboration possible between, for example, RegOps and the people in RA preparing the dossier, or the people in CMC reviewing the quality information. And there's also the option to export those comments, and also when you republish that same sequence, a more recent version of that draft sequence, then all those comments will be maintained. So that's one thing. So then what you can also do is keep track of basic regulatory data. So not just limited to the data that you find in your index XML and your regional XML. That data is, of course, extracted during the import process. But if you want, you can add more. So you could add the name of the RA responsible person, or you can also assign a global product name to all of your applications worldwide. Well, it's up to the user or up to the company to decide whether there's any internal use case for keeping track of that data. What we see a lot of companies choose to use, and what they really appreciate, is something like submission status. So there's a pre-configured pick list, but that's also editable, where a user can select what the status of each activity is. So is that in draft? Is that already submitted? Is it already approved? Has it maybe been rejected? And that really helps you to not only look at the current view in a way, let's say, where the latest sequences are displayed, but where you can also exclude, for example, sequences that are still in draft, or that you do not want to be included based on the status, creating a current view on the approved information only. Then we also have various regulatory activity views, because eCTD, that is exchanging single packages, but those packages may belong to the same activity. So here in this view, we have another level that allows you to group sequences that belong to the same activity together. So we have an initial MAA here, and we have there are 3 packages. And also here we can create a current view per regulatory activity. So you do not only see which 3 sequences belong to the MAA, but you can also create an MAA a current view on these 3 sequences only. And the same for your introduction of a new manufacturer here. So if there are also, and there has been initial submission, maybe a response to questions where certain documents got replaced. What we see a lot of companies do, they first submit it in Europe or the US, and then once it's approved, they want to send it out worldwide. Now you don't have to look in each of those sequences, what is the latest file I have submitted. You can create a current view, and that gives you an overview of the latest documents only, those documents that have been approved. And then we also offer the option to insert there a reference to your change control number or change control numbers. That allows you for end-to-end tracking, let's say from the initial change request up to all the submissions that you have sent out worldwide to support that change. So these are some examples on how Dossplorer can be used for your internal use cases. And I also promised to give you some insight into our latest developments. And I think these are pretty exciting things where we also deviate a little bit further from what typically a standard eCTD viewer can do, and where Dossplorer is more and more becoming a full analytics tool, instead of being an eCTD viewer only. So a lot of companies, they like the cloud. What they don't like is that they need to move the data there. So, and if the data is currently on-premise or in a different cloud, then they do not want to be bothered keeping multiple storage locations in sync. So this is also something we had to solve. So first of all, how to get the information on the Dossier private cloud. Well, this is why we developed the Dossplorer Exchange bot, which is constantly monitoring an assigned location at the company. So if you create your own eCTDs and you have your published output, then this can be synced with through the Exchange bot. So at fixed intervals, that could be any time, every 10 minutes, it scans that location. It detects when something has changed, and it will then start to download, move and extract those files to the source location in the Dossier private cloud, or location where Dossplorer takes the information from. There's also full logging. People get notified via email once it's picked up by the Exchange bot. This is how files then end up at the specific storage location where Dossplorer can start the import from. And that is then also, again, something that can be fully automated, where the automatic import agent now detects that in our cloud, a new dossier has been made available, and it will trigger an automated import process in Dossplorer. And that can be import of an eCTD or a NIS, it can be a full application, it can be a single sequence, or even if there is a more recent version of the same sequence number being published, it will also detect that. And well, it can be used for bulk import. So when we recently had quite a large implementation with literally hundreds and hundreds of applications, then that migration to Dossplorer was actually fairly easy, because it was just a matter of continuously copying the latest files to the right storage location, and then the Exchange bot and the automator took care of it. So there was no manual import at all. And it can also handle that bulk import. And even if import is still ongoing in the next cycle, so let's say if you're importing 100 sequences or applications at a time, then it will not, it will ignore those sequences already detected earlier. Well, then the next thing, once you have all your dossiers in Dossplorer, then you would also like to have appropriate metadata there, because the more relevant metadata that you have, also the better, the more capabilities you have when it comes to analytics and organizing your views in a certain way. So we also developed here a way to bulk import your metadata, export your metadata in a way that it can be cleansed easily, for example, in a spreadsheet, and then re-import it in Dossplorer in bulk. Then, so these are all some of the latest developments. Another thing that I believe is not yet released will be...
it is released.
It is released, meanwhile? Okay, sorry. I thought this was for November, but it is already available. And we are particularly excited about this one, because it's one thing to be able to search across documents, let's say document titles and document metadata. But what people really would like is to be able to also search within those files. So we have now our advanced search module, which is offering full text dynamic search. So every document in all of your applications can be full text indexed, and then well, here in this example, a search for sodium chloride, that would list all the documents that contain that phrase. And then through a dynamic search filter, so depending on the results, certain filters are presented here, and you can further drill down. So what we can see here is this term is found 86 times in product A, 12 times in product QT, and 12 times in product B. So if I'm only interested in product B, and this is how I can narrow down. I also see here snippets of the text in which context that term was found. So I can also define here whether it's relevant. If I'd like to jump to that file, I can use the locate button and it will open that particular file for you, and you can further understand in which context it was submitted. And then, as you can see here, also all other relevant metadata associated to that file or to that sequence or application is displayed. So this is how, through dynamic search, you can narrow down. Yeah, this is particularly helpful, of course, if you're doing all kind of assessments across dossiers. Something else we will be introducing, and I think then this is the one yet to be released, but it will be in the next release, and that is instant document translation. So although most of the documentation is typically in English, especially Module 1 may contain also local documents in the local language. And take, for example, currently in eCTD, we have to submit our eCTD updates 14 days, 30 days after the update. Well, we are also doing eCTD submissions for one of our customers, and they have a lot of SMPCs, about 1,200 of them. And officially, all of them should also be translated back into English. But by the time those English translations become available to us, well, then that is way beyond those 14 days. So what we can do here now is in Dossplorer instantly translate any SMPC, for example, into 100 plus different languages, so into your own local language or into English. And that will, of course, not be a formal translation, yet we think, based on what we have observed, these translations are pretty accurate by today's technology, and definitely more than sufficient for, let's say, someone extracting the data for an eCTD submission to do that based on this translation. And there are, of course, many other reasons why instant translations of documents can be very helpful, not just for eCTD submissions, but also for other people within the company. Well, so in summary, we have the option, of course, to support traditional eCTD viewing, but there are also many other internal and external use cases that you'd like to see supported that go beyond the exchange with the health authority of a single eCTD. So one of the ways we support that is by offering more than 20 different views in your dossier. So I think we also, to a great extent, are addressing many of the typical limitations associated to eCTD 3.2. So yeah, you can take benefit of that already today without implementing any changes to your eCTDs, without having to move to eCTD 4.0 first. Yeah, we also have several capabilities that go beyond eCTD viewing only, and that will really help you to truly unlock the value of your applications. As I said, with that full text search capabilities, with the different views, then the information that is now still trapped in your eCTD, so as, let's say, digitalized paper in the form of PDFs, then suddenly becomes more available for all kind of internal use case. And I think also what we have been able to demonstrate so far is that also based on our own practical experience working with eCTDs, we have been able to make a lot of smaller and larger improvements when it comes to eCTD viewing that will really help the people interacting with electronic submissions. So finally, I would also like to share a case study with you. So this is also, well, this was, let's say, our biggest customer when that had a clear need for having a more holistic view across their dossiers, and not just the view, but also the ability to search. So they wanted a solution where they can search quickly through all of their dossiers and also through the content of those dossiers. And here we are talking about approximately 1,000 applications. So that is really a lot of information. So to do things such as, well, see which documents or registrations are using a certain manufacturer or substance, or where we have certain indication used. So that was the problem statement. They wanted a solution for that. So that is why we developed that advanced search, why we gave the option to look both on the content, but also use the metadata already available to do a further narrow down, to search also within search results, to track document status. So, for example, you can here also narrow down to only approved documents. You can get that snippet of the results so that you can quickly see in which context that term was used. Because if you are looking for indications, well, then that same term may also appear somewhere else as contraindication. So then with these snippets, you can easily see how to further narrow down the results, whether there are any false positives in there. We also have built-in user guidance to make it even more intuitive to work with that functionality. And we also have some intelligence that allows us to automatically order search results based on the relevancy. Yeah, so that was the outcome. It was we delivered this module, and now this is becoming a real game changer for that customer. And how we were able to do that is through a successful partnership in close collaboration with them, with their subject matter experts, with our subject matter expert and our development team. And then right from the beginning, collecting all the right requirements and make sure that this was followed through till the end, till we were able to deliver something that met all of the objectives. So this is just a summary on why we believe Dossplorer would be a good choice. So it's just listing here some of the advantages, like that full intuitive text search, having those 20+ views across dossiers as well. Automation in the form of the exchange bot, in the form of the import agent, instant document translation, also the ability to personalize your navigation tree, so organize it by product, or organize it by country, or organize it by a specific substance, whatever your own use case is, will be at that moment. Having the metadata with the documents rather than somewhere hidden in the dossier. And not only be able to import eCTD, but also other file formats, like if you have still files and folders containing volumized PDFs that are still being printed, then also those volumized PDFs in any file or folder structure can be imported. Any clinical trial applications, IMPDs, pediatric investigation plan applications, medical device registrations. So all of those can also be imported.
Right, well, thanks very much. I know we're rapidly running out of time here, so thanks again to Mikkel and to Hans for that. Also, thanks to the attendees. As we said, please do feel free to reach out on those contact details on the screen. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions or set up any live demonstrations. So I think with that all being said, thanks very much to everyone. We can let you go and enjoy the rest of your days. So yeah, thanks a lot to everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.